Hello, I'm Saba Naqvi here with Sumeet Mhaskar, a brilliant labor sociologist, to talk about why the caste census, why now, what does it mean, what are the implications of it. Thank you, Sumit. Thank you for talking to us. And may I ask you, is this another social justice movement or is it just a political ploy?
I mean, it's a bigger question, I must say. Uh, I mean, both, one can actually go in both directions. As far as social justice is concerned, it is not going to directly produce social justice. It is just a data collection exercise at this moment. Now, whether that will eventually lead to social justice, it will depend on the political will of the ruling party, whichever is in power, whenever this data is released. Now, whether this is a political ploy, it really depends on whether this has a mass appeal or not. So far what we have seen is that the Congress party was not necessarily able to mobilize masses on the issue of census, which would have reflected in the national elections. But there is certainly a pressure on the BJP to announce this census.
So I'm going to jump into a very complicated question because everybody says, I understand the social justice part of it. I am from Uttar Pradesh myself. One saw the transformation of politics, the Mandal era parties. However, the numbers of jobs are shrinking.
Yes.
So, and I have just been talking to some labor who inform me whatever be the hardships of their lives, and they are migrants from Eastern UP, they are earning 30 to 40,000, whereas they told me with great pride that educated people with degrees are earning 15 to 20,000.
Totally.
So the logic of a caste census is, what does it mean? You reserve, ultimately, what can the fruits be? You reserve for more people, you reserve more seats in educational institutions, they get their education, they then get into government. But if the government jobs are shrinking, what is it's symbolic empowerment? What are we talking here?
See, one thing which is already a widely known kind of fact, which is that there is inequality as far as access to well-paid employment is concerned, as far as one's social background is concerned. So the problem what you highlighted is the real one, that even when the census figures are out, there are at least two things. One is higher education opportunities and public employment. Now, if you look at public employment, you have roughly 2 jobs maximum of the 100 jobs in the public employment.
Okay.
Now, within those 2 jobs, then the further reservation. So, one job will be reserved, and then the further 1% will be chopped into scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and OBCs. So, we are really talking of one job out of the total 100 jobs where you will have affirmative action, which means the total volume of whatever social justice might happen has reduced significantly now.
Yes.
Secondly, higher education. Now, if we look at government policies over the last 10-15 years, we have moved in the direction of privatization of higher education.
Yes.
Which again means that whatever kind of higher education opportunities would be available through affirmative action policies has again reduced. The share of that cake has reduced significantly. So even if we take that as one part of including caste in the census, then it may not have direct, like a very huge impact on the policies. On political front, as far as claiming more seats in the parliament or assemblies, or having better representation for groups within the other backward caste or within scheduled caste or tribes, that probably will be intensified. But as far as concrete benefits of higher education is concerned and the public employment, that unless the government changes its policies, we don't see much possibility there.
Yes, so but it is an empowering tool, and there is obviously the question that how are we doing any data without the data?
Yes.
Which is what we were doing by not. Can you explain to the audience why did we not enumerate beyond the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes? Why did we fail to get the detailed caste census since 1931? Just briefly, as an explainer.
Yeah, so what happened after 1931, of course, there is a war and then the data was problematic because of the war. But in 1951, by then India has already achieved independence. And then the discussion was, should we actually document all the castes apart from scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Because for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, there were constitutional obligations such as the reservations in higher
Yes,
education
yes.
and public employment, as well as the parliamentary reservation. So then the discussion was, should we actually include all the castes, enumerate all of them? And then what prevailed over this was the national unity concern. So Jawaharlal Nehru's concern of national unity, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's concern of national unity prevailed over the concern of documenting all castes.
What was Dr. Ambedkar's concern?
He definitely was in favor of documenting, and there was a question raised to him that will scheduled caste be still recorded in the census, and he said yes, I hope so, it will be done. But then there is the first agriculture minister of India, Punjab Rao Deshmukh from Maharashtra. He was a consistent advocate of documenting all castes in the census. But
And
then
Deshmukh is a Maratha or a...
he's a Maratha.
He's a
Yeah,
Maratha.
he's a Maratha. He's from the Vidarbha region. Very important, social justice advocate. And he consistently advocated this demand from 1948, the Constituent Assembly debates, even up to 1951. But this concern was pretty much kept out.
By the Congress leadership.
Yeah, then
Because they were the... No, my theory is, look, you're a social scientist, I'm a journalist, and my theory is that the Congress lost out so much in the Hindi heartland because they only had upper caste leadership, which is post-Mandal.
Yeah.
But now we are seeing a different articulation by the Congress under Rahul Gandhi, where he talks about the caste census. So, but the Congress instinctively did not want that. Beyond, so I have another question for you again. I would also like to understand that. How did Tamil Nadu, the Dravida movement, how were their contours different to everything else? Which state had movement of backward castes? Is Tamil Nadu's figures, they've done well on everything, is because they had a social justice revolution before everyone else?
Partly yes and partly no. As far as social justice is concerned, obviously you have, the dominant caste, what we call them. The several dominant castes are also benefiting from the affirmative action there. And, like some different kind of backward categories were created, and that's why they have reservation up to 69-70%. So the scope of beneficiary was wider, and that remains wider in Tamil Nadu. And of course, there are several other factors in terms of education and the various histories of development and the kind of seriousness that the state has taken. That may have caused for its social indicators, because the state was very much serious in terms of doing different kinds of schemes. So, for example, the midday meal scheme, the origin is in Tamil Nadu.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So it later became a national scheme and a popular, but to begin with, it was a Tamil Nadu scheme. So by documenting those kind of backward groups, nothing has stopped the development of that state. So that is also one of the examples that all those who are afraid that because we will document all the castes, somehow we will not develop further, that is a wrong assumption.
So no, the assumption that there is some kind of disunity in documenting castes goes back to the Congress leadership. And then later, even the RSS has had a lot of misgivings on this front. And it's just that now the BJP has surprised everyone with announcing that they will do a caste census. But let me ask you about your state, which is the state of Maharashtra, which is also Dr. Ambedkar's state. Complex, large state. What is the situation with caste assertion and all in Maharashtra? I understand the Hindi belt well, but Maharashtra always confuses a lot of people.
Yeah.
It had great social reformers, great everything, and then you also have the origins of right-wing ideologies.
Yes.
So, what is it on the caste front in Maharashtra? Is it possible to?
As far as caste in Maharashtra is concerned, of course, there is, as you said, there is a long history of the non-Brahmin movement beginning in the 19th century with Mahatma Jyotirao Phule, and further then Dr. Ambedkar takes up the baton of leading the social justice movement in Maharashtra. But there are certain kind of issues that are settled in terms of castes in Maharashtra, and that is about the discourse of social justice. So there are less kind of contestations over that. So irrespective of the political ideology, there is a consensus around social justice.
Okay.
Okay. So the idea of Bahujan, even though Marathas technically may not associate otherwise with Bahujan politics, but when they want to claim political power, they also claim to be part of the Bahujan.
Okay, right.
So there is some kind of consensus already built around that. Now, what has happened, and of course, there have been also opposition voices. This is not to say that there is a complete consensus over it. Now, what has happened in the last few years in Maharashtra, and I believe in other states as well, is this whole demand for OBCs and the dominant caste for reservation. So the OBC reservation has constantly, been challenged in different ways by the Supreme Court, saying we don't have figures. So obviously, within OBC groups, there is a demand to have caste in the census.
Yes.
Now the Marathas are demanding reservation.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, and therefore the census would clearly help to resolve that problem as well.
Are you a favor of this, of the judgment that said we must, the creamy layer judgment in scheduled caste categories, that you must make sure? Are you a favor or are you against it? There are complete divisions on it. I'm curious.
See, as far as the creamy layer is concerned, that was not part of the main judgment. So as of now, it is not applicable.
Okay.
So what the Supreme Court has said in the main judgment is that the caste which have benefited slightly better needs to be created as a part of separate group, and then the caste who have been left behind can be treated as a separate group. So right now in Haryana, you have general scheduled caste and deprived scheduled caste.
Okay.
But as far as the creamy layer is concerned, that is not part of the main
phrase.
judgment.
I know. But I was asking about that particular judgment with divided people.
Yeah, but judgment was divided because it allowed for the subclassification of scheduled caste. It was not about adding creamy layer, because it's not constitutionally possible to add creamy layer.
Yes, I get that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So with now that the India's preeminent ruling party has declared the intention of conducting a caste, enumerating caste along with the next census, let us can you explain to us as a social scientist when will the census take place? Do you have any idea?
No, I think.
And how will it happen? And do we not have to have a separate budgetary allocation before a massive exercise like the census takes place? And also linked to that, have we not faltered in not doing the census on time, which should have been in 21? You as a social scientist are relying on 2011 figures.
Totally.
Am I right?
Yeah.
So just explain to viewers.
Yes, sure.
What is the census exercise and how should we do it?
Yeah, I think.
And how will they do it? How will the government do
sure.
it? Please explain.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things here. So first thing is that the census is conducted every 10 years. Now, of course, we are late, and this is really unfortunate, and this should not have happened. Now, the second part here, when people talk about caste census, what they actually get confused that somehow there will be some new exercise that will be conducted, which is wrong. You already have a long form, which all kinds of information is gathered from individuals.
Yeah.
It's just one extra column is added to that form, which is that of caste. That's it. So in terms of budget also, nothing has changed.
Okay.
It's just one extra question will be asked to you. Like your gender was asked, your family members, like age group, everything was asked. So in addition to that, there will be one column. That's it. So that's why people are calling it caste census. It should be just caste in census. So like so it's like your gender
caste in
census.
That's not a caste census,
it's
but
not
a caste in census.
Exactly. Okay. It's like your gender is asked, your religion is asked, your language is asked. Similarly, your caste will be asked. So technically, it's not a big deal in terms of like any expenditure is not going to be put on this particular exercise at all.
Right.
So like all the developed countries in the world, such as the United States of America, Canada, United Kingdom, all of them do these kind of censuses. Okay. They record races, they record ethnicities, and they're still doing well economically as well. So I think to come back to your question again, I think this is a simple exercise where the enumerators will go each household.
But they have to allocate a budget and tell us. They haven't announced the census. They have announced an intention of a very lofty exercise without saying when the exercise will take place. Am I right in that?
Not necessarily, because see, the census will have to be taken place at some point anyway. So therefore, it's not about there will be budgetary allocation. So that's not a problem.
Okay.
So irrespective of the fact whether you record caste or not, census will be recorded.
But we don't know when at this
Yeah,
point.
exactly.
That's
but
what I'm saying.
yeah, so that is a concern. But then what they have clear, the intention is that now they will add an extra column to the form.
There's one more question. There's a political. I'm giving you some that they could be doing the caste census because, frankly, the Bharatiya Janata Party does respond to the reality of caste.
Sure.
It called it social engineering
Yes.
at one time in the Mandal era. They have responded to it, and but however, the delimitation of states is also coming up.
Yes.
And the southern states are very jittery about that.
Totally.
But when so possibly, we don't know because there are many unknowns in this, imponderables in this. There's a question of delimitation. Is it going to be on population basis? There is a question of reservation for women, also promised by the Prime Minister. After the next census, delimitation exercise, there's that. If you show that its backward castes are expanding, does it put ideologically a greater burden on state like Tamil Nadu, the Dravida movement state, to somehow balances the idea of losing proportional seat representation, or is it too complicated? Am I thinking into what will be the northern states where the BJP has its bastions? Or you think I'm thinking in a very complicated way, or do you think that's there?
Not necessarily. So these are two separate things, I would say, because that is in general population, and that will the states will have to take a call, because in order for the Indian federalism, the structure of states and a union government, if they have to work, then some form of agreement will have to be come to. That's a different thing. Now, when it comes to having information on caste, we already have surveys done by Karnataka, Telangana, and Bihar.
Okay.
And it has more or less produced expected results.
What are those results? Can you just share with that the OBCs are the dominant?
Yeah, the OBCs have a greater number. You also have the upper caste groups. They also have larger share of land. So all of this is more or less documented. So some of these are not really that surprising. Some minor surprises here and there. So what survey will eventually document, I think all political parties know that. See, any political party has to be a good anthropologist as well.
Yeah,
they need to, exactly. They need to know which caste is where, which micro super caste.
Seat, which
exactly.
area. Yeah.
So in that sense, already every political party has a census informal with them.
Yeah.
Okay. Any successful political party needs to have a control over these demographics.
So I have another question for
Yes,
you, because
please.
I am from the state of Uttar Pradesh, which is fared better, but a lot of reporting I've done in Bihar. Bihar operates on the principle of caste, mostly loyalties, and yet there is such poor delivery of basic needs of the people over there. You are also an expert in migration studies.
Yes.
Please tell me, how is it that you have politics run on caste, and yet there is no real welfare of the people in terms of education, health, nothing?
Yeah.
And it is, you've improved infrastructure. That seems to be the model. Make good roads, improve the roads to the from the Lalu Prasad era. And, but you don't give, there's nothing really, So when you look at a state like that, am I right in saying that Bihar could proportionally give the largest number of migrants to India?
Oh, very much. It is one of the largest exporting of migrants to the country. Also,
I've seen them sitting on trains, just leaving.
Yeah.
And so this caste assertion, if it's not culminating in something positive, I mean,
yeah. See,
what has gone? How do we clarify the air about the Bihar story and the Tamil Nadu story?
Yeah,
both these states have the theme of caste assertion is alive. One state has moved on way before, and one state is lagging. Is it a complicated question for me to ask?
I don't think so. But see, the thing is that as far as Bihar is concerned, the backward caste assertion took place much in late 70s, and by the time it was 80s, that's when you have Lalu Prasad coming to power.
Yeah.
Whereas in Tamil Nadu, already by independence, the backward caste had control over the state power. and therefore they were able to access the resources from the state. For Bihar to happen, that took almost 1990s.
Yes.
Because even when Ralu was in power, the bureaucracy did not make it easier for him
Oh no,
to
not
deliver.
at all, not at all.
Yeah. So there are problems with that, in that regard. It's only now we can see some results, but we are comparing Tamil Nadu, which already had control over politics from 1950s.
Okay.
And Bihar, we had whatever kind of assertion from Lalu Prasad Yadav or even Nitish Kumar, that kind of access to power, becoming actually deciding how we will redistribute the resources, that happened only from 1990s onwards. And therefore, the period of assessment is very small for Bihar. So in that regard, of course, Bihar has a historical disadvantage.
It does, it does.
Compared to Tamil
Yes,
Nadu.
yes.
And
also Tamil Nadu's port, the
Yeah.
British infrastructure
Yes.
there. This was a permanent settlement land state.
And also education, because of
Education.
Madras presidency,
Yes,
the access to education and mobility
Yeah.
was obviously much higher.
yes, yes.
And that partly explains these two different stories.
These two different stories. And now the next election in India is the Bihar election. And
Yes.
the quick analysis is that the BJP has come out with the caste census because of Bihar. However, they're riding a tiger which they cannot control, because you cannot put this back in.
Yes, never.
Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Once you put it out there,
Yeah.
you can't. According to you, how much reservation should there be in India in government jobs and educational institutions? Should it be jitni abadi utna hak, as Rahul Gandhi has said? Do you think it should go up?
See, the original idea was, of course, to keep it to the 50. I mean, not necessarily to 50, but up to 50%, so that eventually, when there will come a time, the assumption was that the non-reserved part of the seats would also match the population demographics. So that then we know that actually, all these reservation that is kept for the socially disadvantaged groups, actually they have also now managed to compete, and they have also gone into the what is so-called general seats now. That would be time we don't need any reservation. Okay, and that's why the scope was kept a little bigger.
Okay.
But that has not happened. That you only have maximum up to 50% only seats being filled up. So in so many other cases like higher education and all, even like universities like JNU, the reservation was filled for the first time in late 1990s. So we are really talking of the attempt of those who were controlling institution at a very micro level, that was to subvert the reservation and not implement it.
Yes, yes.
And this is across political ideologies and whichever party had ruled the state.
Yeah.
The primary thing was to how to subvert the reservation policies in whatever form. And that is precisely the reason that yes, there have been gains, but the gains could not be complete because the attempt was not really genuine in that sense. It's only with the what we call the second wave of democratization, third wave of democratization after 1980s. That's when people from backward caste obtained political power, and they were able to push this agenda of fulfilling the reservation for the first time.
Right. Yeah.
And in that sense, reservation is not like from 50s onwards, the bureaucrats were sitting who are like, that, oh, now that this policy has come, let's implement it effectively. They made everything possible to not implement
To
it.
subvert it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you
Yeah.
on that entirely. In fact, when we think about caste and look at the higher judiciary,
Yeah.
we are just about to get a Chief Justice
Yes.
from Maharashtra,
Yeah.
who is a Dalit, I think the second in India's history,
Yeah.
which is symbolically of significance, but it's rare.
Yeah.
Even with the practicing Supreme Court lawyers,
Yeah.
and look at the media,
Yes.
we don't have in the mainstream media adequate
Yeah.
subaltern voices. You have some, but not enough. So it's all over. So yet, how I think caste census and social justice and the Lalu Prasad era, it was all about asserting and breaking the shackles of the psychological shackles.
Yes.
As somebody once told me in Bihar, that they would not sit in a train if a upper caste man was sitting. Now they could sit in the train in the same compartment. However, now all these years down, you just don't get a sense that what is the ideal path ahead to You know, at the same time, you have this curious problem which I flagged already,
Mhm.
is that those who are skilled labor
Mhm.
are earning more than educated graduates.
Yeah.
So we have these two conundrums because they've not been able to generate jobs
Totally,
for
yeah.
people. And that skill, those educated graduates could be from all castes, including the upper
Yes,
castes.
very much.
And they're not getting employment today.
Yes.
Am I right in my...
Yeah, very much. Because as I said, the share of well-paid employment. See, jobs are there. But when we talk of well-paid employment with social security benefits, with all kind of medical benefits, the pensions, all these kind of provisions, when we think of, that share of jobs has shrunk like completely. You only have hardly 3 to 4% or maximum 5% of jobs in this country. That of the 100 jobs, only 5 jobs actually have the best social security provisions and well-paid employment. 95% of the population in this country actually is part of what is the famous informal sector, where your wages are extremely low, you have no social security provisions and no form of access to any kind of medical facilities at all.
Yes.
But maybe on the census, what I would like to particularly highlight is that, of course, there is opposition to including, the category of caste in the census. But what we don't understand is, for example, gender as a category. If we don't include gender into the census category, or we have not included, we would not have known first that there is gender disparity. That there is, in terms of population, there are more male than female. Secondly, we would not have known that certain states in India are actually known for female infanticide, that the childbirth is killed.
Yes.
At the birth itself.
They're actually around us in North
Exactly.
India.
So, for example, this is one thing that if you record the gender, we at least know that this is a social problem and then we can work on it. Similarly, if you record caste, we will have some patterns, and if the problems we already know that exist, it will give concrete evidence to work on it. So, if you don't have that record information, you cannot work on it. And that is one of the reasons that actually it's not only about social justice or getting reservation.
Yes.
For example, this female infanticide is not about giving any benefit.
Absolutely, yes.
But it is about actually having a balanced society and not allowing such crimes to happen.
Absolutely, yes.
The second example comparable is about poverty. India has been recording the number of poor people since independence. And because we have statistics on poverty, or whatever, we may disagree with the level of poverty is decided. But because we have consistently produced those numbers, we can actually talk about poverty. That, we have more poverty, let's work on reducing it. So similarly, if we add caste in the census, we will have figures, and then one can discuss. One can disagree on how we move ahead. But for that, the Supreme Court has consistently rejected so many petitions by saying we don't have concrete information. Right? So let's have that information.
Yes.
And come on, India is a society where you put all your private information in a matrimonial advertisement. Right? Your caste, your gotra and everything. And you are making opposition to the census, which is actually anonymous.
Yes. Because
even though you are recorded, the information is anonymous. It does not specifically tell about anything. We talk about how many people are there.
Is it correct to assume, is birth rate also linked to poverty levels, caste?
Birth rate, yes. I would say that you have the more landed families, the more dominant caste. That's where you have this issue of female infanticide more prominent. Haryana being the most prominent state. You have the massive imbalance in sex ratio there. Okay, but that has also trickled down to several other states, including Maharashtra. So people of course talk about the progressive Maharashtra and all, and of course the landed families there also have gone ahead in terms of having female infanticide practices.
Yes.
And so in that sense, caste is linked to demography.
I was just interested in that is of course true. And do you, since you work on migration, labor rights, has there been land reform of any meaningful nature? There have been in parts of India, I know. It has. And it has transformed, but not to the... May I ask you about the situation of land distribution, access to land for poorer Indians?
No, I don't think we have had like a proper land reform. And whatever land we talk about, we don't talk about the quality of land that has been given. Is it a barren land? Is it a cultivable land? what kind of land it is. Wherever West Bengal or wherever we celebrate those figures, but what we don't understand is that can that land actually enable that family to sustain themselves and also have a mobility. So we don't just need land reforms, we also need quality kind of land
I guess.
reform.
Okay.
We need to give poor people a good quality of land so that it is sustainable. You can't give a barren land to somebody and say the land distribution is done. And I think nobody's talking about this aspect. There are so many discussions happening on politicians that we should give jobs. Of course, we should give jobs, but nobody talks about the quality jobs.
Yes,
That
of course.
we need to have well-paid jobs for
Do you think India has eliminated poverty in the manner it should have?
Answer is no, actually, because one of the simple reasons is that you don't pay enough to your working population.
Yes.
So people are poor not because they don't work or they don't do anything. It's because they are not well paid. So if you look at the informal sector and anywhere in the country, the wages are absolutely abysmally low. So therefore they can't sustain their livelihood. And that is one of the reasons that you have one incident in your family of accident or something, you just drop down like anything. And therefore it's a little
This
difficult.
whole over the last few years, we've seen India's dominant party also give out a lot of free rations and all, and cash
Yes.
to women in Maharashtra, where
Yes.
your home state. Has that helped people? Is it just something that people take for granted, or what is the situation? Without creating good health or education structures, I see that as a problem. But am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. See, the point is that the public infrastructure has been shrinking like anything.
Yes.
Whether it's hospitals, schools, or employment. And therefore, that is precisely the reason you have to do this whole ration kind of distribution. If there are actually people who have enough resources, they don't need people's all these kind of benefits from the state.
In fact, someone was telling me in the area where we are from that the quality of the ration is so poor.
Yeah.
In that people are just collecting it and giving it to cattle and all that. In some cases. Some places it's good, some places it's bad. It really depends on who you're outsourcing it.
Totally, yeah.
So it's a fascinating. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Something with your thoughts on the caste census before we wind it up?
Yeah, I think, you have asked pretty much, so many different aspects of it. One thing as an academic, I would like to highlight here is that this data is also important for the scholars.
Absolutely, yes.
Because, see, the thing is that as scholars, we rely on large-scale authentic data. And whether it's history, economic history, labor history, you have sociologists, anthropologists, we all have used this data historically.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's actually important for us to know. One of the ways in which, I'm a labor sociologist, I'm interested in occupational choices.
Absolutely, yeah.
And unless we have this longitudinal data, we cannot actually see whether things have changed or not over the years. So by not documenting this from 1951, as scholar, actually I feel that we don't have that resources. How do we analyze that pattern? And I think it's not just about social justice, and so it is many things. And overall, having caste in the census is not at all problematic. It will only enhance the discussion, and actually it's about confronting the problem, if any.
Absolutely, and nobody can disagree with that argument.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for listening in. Thank you.